orthodoxy. Welcome to the Money System, where we explain how money really works.
Have you ever felt like you're working harder and harder, but your savings just keep shrinking? It's a frustrating feeling, isn't it? Well, what if I told you there was once a country so rich it was the envy of the entire world? But in just a few decades, it lost almost everything. This isn't some ancient legend. It's a true story, and it holds some powerful lessons for all of us today. The country I'm talking about is Nauru, a tiny island nation in the Pacific Ocean. You might have never even heard of it, but in the 1970s and 80s, Nauru had the highest per capita GDP on the planet. Higher than Switzerland, higher than Saudi Arabia, higher than the United States. Its citizens were living a life of unimaginable luxury. Imagine this: no taxes, free healthcare, free education, and a government that handed out cash to its people. Sound like a dream, right? So, how did this tiny island become so ridiculously wealthy? The secret lay right under their feet. For thousands of years, bird droppings, or guano, had accumulated on the island, mixing with limestone to create a massive deposit of high-quality phosphate. And in the 20th century, phosphate was gold. It was a key ingredient in fertilizer, essential for the agricultural boom happening all over the world. When Nauru gained independence in 1968, it took control of its phosphate mines. The timing couldn't have been better. Global demand was soaring, and money began to pour into the country like a tidal wave. The government established the Nauru Phosphate Royalties Trust, a sovereign wealth fund meant to secure the island's future for generations to come. By the early 1980s, this fund was worth over $1 billion. For a population of just a few thousand people, this was an astronomical sum. Life in Nauru transformed overnight. People stopped their traditional ways of life, like fishing and farming. Why would you when you could just import everything? The island's residents developed a taste for the finer things. Luxury cars clogged the single road that circled the island. People would fly to Hawaii or Australia just for a weekend shopping spree. The national airline, Air Nauru, had a fleet of jets, often flying nearly empty, just so islanders could travel whenever they pleased. It was a non-stop party, funded by an seemingly endless mountain of phosphate. But here's where the story takes a dark turn. The mountain wasn't endless. The very resource that made them rich was finite. Scientists warned that the phosphate deposits would run out, but in the haze of wealth, those warnings were largely ignored. The focus was on the now, not the future. Compounding the problem was catastrophic mismanagement of the country's wealth fund. The Nauru Phosphate Trust was supposed to be the island's safety net. Instead, it became a personal piggy bank for risky and often bizarre investments. They poured money into things that had no hope of turning a profit. For instance, they financed a London West End musical called Leonardo the Musical, a portrait of love. It was a spectacular failure, closing after just a few weeks and losing millions of dollars. They bought luxury hotels around the world, like the Nauru House in Melbourne, which was the tallest building in the city at the time. But these properties were poorly managed and often sold at a massive loss. Bad advice, questionable deals, and outright corruption drained the fund at an alarming rate. It was a classic case of having too much money and not enough financial literacy or responsible oversight. The wealth that was meant to last forever was vanishing into thin air. Meanwhile, back on the island, the physical and social landscape was deteriorating. Decades of intensive strip mining had rendered 80% of the island's interior a barren, jagged wasteland of limestone pinnacles. It looked like a moonscape, completely uninhabitable and unusable for agriculture. The environmental devastation was absolute. The health of the Noaran people also suffered dramatically, with a diet of imported, processed junk food and a sedentary lifestyle. Nauru developed one of the highest rates of type 2 diabetes and obesity in the world. The life expectancy plummeted. The dream of wealth had turned into a nightmare of poor health and environmental ruin. Then, in the early 2000s, the inevitable happened. The phosphate ran out. The last profitable mines were scraped clean, and the river of money that had flowed for 30 years dried up to a trickle. The party was officially over. The collapse was swift and brutal. The government was bankrupt. The Sovereign Wealth Fund, once worth over $1 billion, was virtually gone. Air Nauru had to sell off its planes. The luxury cars were left to rust by the roadside. The imported food stopped coming. People who had forgotten how to fish or grow their own food were suddenly faced with scarcity. The country that once had the highest GDP per capita in the world was now one of the poorest. It had lost over 90% of its wealth. To survive, Nauru had to resort to desperate measures. For a time, it became a tax haven and was implicated in money laundering schemes. Then, most controversially, it partnered with Australia to host an offshore detention centre for asylum seekers in exchange for aid. The world's richest country was now dependent on handouts. Its sovereignty compromised. The story of Nauru is a powerful cautionary tale. It's a story about the resource curse, where sudden, immense wealth from a natural resource leads not to long-term prosperity, but to economic collapse and social decay. It shows what happens when a nation consumes its capital, both financial and natural instead of investing it wisely. What can we learn from this? First, true wealth isn't just about money. It's about sustainability. Whether it's a country's natural resources or your own personal savings, you can't just spend it all without a plan for the future. You have to invest, diversify, and protect your capital. Second, financial literacy is crucial. The Nauruan government made disastrous investment choices because they lacked the expertise to manage their vast fortune. This applies to us as individuals too. Understanding how to manage money, how to invest wisely, and how to spot a bad deal is essential for securing our own financial futures. And finally, the story of Nauru reminds us not to take anything for granted. The environment, our health, our skills, these are all forms of wealth. The pursuit of easy money led Nehru to neglect all of these with devastating consequences. They strip-mined their land, forgot their traditional skills, and sacrificed their health for a lifestyle that was ultimately unsustainable. Today, Nehru is trying to rebuild. There are efforts to rehabilitate the mined-out lands and promote healthier lifestyles, but the scars both on the land and on the people run deep. It's a long, difficult road back from the brink. The tale of Nehru is extreme, but the principles are universal. It serves as a stark warning for any person, company, or country that comes into sudden wealth. Don't be Nehru. Think long-term. Invest in yourself and your future. Protect your assets and never forget that the most valuable things in life often can't be bought with money. Thank you so much for watching. If you found this story as fascinating and thought-provoking as I did, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into incredible stories from around the world. And I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. What do you think is the biggest lesson from Nehru's story? See you in the next video.
So, we're not smart. If this helped you understand the system, subscribe, like, and share this video.